If you've been playing guitar for a while, and especially if you're looking up information on the internet, you can't not have run across the word mode. And you've probably uncovered tons of information about modes. But really, for most people, modes still won't make sense to them. And this is because we're always trying to give such complete answers, we always forget to say what the basic idea is. And so that's the premise of what we're going to do today. I'm going to try to put modes in a context that makes sense at the simplest and most fundamental level. And by that I mean I'm not going to explain everything. Now I have other videos on modes where I talk about the detail stuff, but this is what is the underlying component of modes that you really want to grab onto and use as your basis for understanding. It sounds ambitious, I know, but we're going to do this within a really weird context, at least for guitar players. We're going to look at it from the idea of writing songs. And this is why modes become hard for people to understand. It's because we avoid the real simple reasons why we do things. Now, I'm going to take myself as an example. I'm a very limited range singer. I don't have 3 octaves of motion or the ability to move around very easily. I sing kind of in a very narrow range. Lots of musicians do. They're just really good at it. But with that as our starting point, a simple way to talk about my work is I would say I'm going to write a chord progression. It's going to start with a D, it's going to end with a D. And if I want a happy song, I want to have 2 chords in the middle that are also going to be major chords. Well, that's pretty easy. I'm going to pick then just 3 chords. I'm going to repeat the one that I'm going to call my tonic twice and go from there. So the natural starting point for pretty much anyone in this problem set would be to start with the key of D and pick the other 2 major chords that are in that key. And that's going to be a D, it's going to be a G, and an A. And that's our chords. What does it sound like? We have a D, we have a G, and an A. How did I get that? Well, we take the major scale, D, E, F. We know that the 4th and the 5th are going to be major chords, so that's the G and the A. So my chord progression is just D, G, A, D. Now I could mix up the A and the G a little bit, but that's my starting point. So the challenge I'm going to put in front of us is I need 2 more songs, because if I just use those 3 chords over and over again, it gets a little dull. I need a better way of doing it. So I need 2 more ways of making my song and have it sound differently. I'm going to do that hopefully by having 2 different major chords. And you go, wait a minute, we just got all 3 chords that are in the major scale. Well, that's the key to modes. We really do get the idea that the D major scale, which is known as the D Ionian, or is the Ionian mode, D major, that's one grouping of our allowed notes. Perfect. What I'm asking myself really in this then is there another key that I could choose where there's going to be 3 major chords, and one of those 3 major chords is going to be a D. Well, I already know that the D major one, that's right in the D Ionian mode. What other key has a D in the positions 4 and 5? Oh, that's easier. We've now broken the problem down. Well, the key of G is a perfect choice. If I go G, A, B, C, and D, oh, I've got a D in the 5th position. Well, there's nothing that stops me from playing that first, and then C, and then D. Makes perfect sense. Does anybody do that? Well, think about it for a second. Do we have any music out there that just goes D, C, and G? Right, we all recognize that one. Everybody gets this. So that's what we mean by a mode. That is a D chord played with 2 other chords that are not in the Ionian mode. And so even though we're using D as our tonic, we're somewhere else. We're doing something different. Oh, okay. Can I do that again? Can I make that happen a second time? Well, sure I can. If I think about a D, an A, and an E, E chord, then I've got 3 different chords that all work in the key of A. A, B, C, D, and E. The D is in the 4th position in this case of my scale. Okay, and do people do this? Well, of course they do. Okay, people do this all the time. We hear these things all the time. That's all we mean by a mode. We can have songs written where we're using a starting point. Now, it doesn't have to be the starting point. That's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's an easy way to think about it. I really want to work with my tonic as D in this case, and I want different chords and major chords when I'm trying to put my songs together. The story being maybe I want it to be a little bit more happy than sad or morose. And so all I'm really doing is asking myself, is there a key out there that has at least the one tonic chord that I want and a couple other chords in the position that I want them to be? In this case, we've made it easy to understand by saying major chords, but that's all we need. Now, we might say to ourselves, well, we do have now 3 different ways of working with our D chord as a starting point. D1 came from the major scale. D2, well, it came from the key of G, and D3 came from the key of A. Well, okay, it's clumsy. So we want to talk about it maybe a little bit better ways of doing it. And that's where the fancy terminology of modes came in. We refer to generically as the first or the major key, D major, in this case, to be the Ionian mode. You've heard me say that a couple times already. We just need names for the other 2 positions. Well, when the D is in the 4th position, it's going to be referred to by another crazy Greek name, lydian. And when we have it in the 5th position, it will be mixolydian. And those are our 3 major modes for what we're doing. And we always refer to the first note, the note that we want to be the tonic first, and we infer the actual key that we're in by the Greek name behind it. So when I say D Ionian, I mean D major. When I say D lydian, and now I've got to get my spacing right, I'm going to really mean the key of A, because it goes A, B, C, D is in the 4th position. Lydian refers to the 4th position. And then the D mixolydian is saying I'm actually in the key of G. Yeah, it's hard to keep all the little references right until you kind of get it running smoothly, but that's what we're really talking about. We're just talking about a naming convention for handling a particular type of problem and having a streamlined language for it. Maybe not streamlined when you first start out, but it starts to make sense as time evolves and we start working with it. And so we do see a lot of these songwriters, they are facing the particular problem that I just mentioned. They need to write a song, they're the singer, they're going to have to write for their abilities, and they may not be able to go everywhere. And so they're going to be narrowing down the region in which they want to be singing. And as I say, in my case, D works kind of good. I'm really happy when my working tonic, the region around which I would identify the song, feels like D. I don't care what key it's in, I just want it to be D related so I can work within my range. So we've really simplified the whole problem down to solving a particular problem, not every possible problem. So why does this get so crazy in guitar? Well, a guitarist isn't necessarily playing for one singer. They may play for multiple singers, all of whom work in different ranges and different scales and have different abilities, and so they are not quite as fixated on a particular single problem. And so they need the flexibility of moving all over all of the scales and building all of these techniques in. And the second you put way more in, it becomes way more complicated. And then as you try to explain the little nuances of what you do, you need to build a lot more sophistication into the language. So that's a really simple way of thinking about modes. Again, not complete. It's not every possible variation on the theme or covering every idea, but it gives us a really good starting point for picking up the more advanced concepts just by appreciating that even though I want to work only in the major keys, there's at least, or the major chords, there's at least 3 keys that let me work with the same tonic and then put some different chords in.